Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is actress Marjorie Lord and photographer Robert Zuckerman. A third-generation San Franciscan actress, author, director, Marjorie Lord left California when her family moved to New York City. She was but a teenager. Marjorie made her debut on Broadway at the age of 16 with Dame Judith Anderson, who I'm sure wasn't a dame at that time, right?
No, she was not.
And then you toured with her for 9 months.
Yes.
Was that like the biggest break of your life?
I didn't realize that I was too young to appreciate what a break it was. It was. I replaced an English girl who wanted to leave so she could work again. So it had been running. It was a Pulitzer Prize play.
Oh, it was.
And Helen Menken she was the first wife of Humphrey Bogart, was the co-star in that.
Did you want to do that? Were you there
yes.
to be an actress?
I had studied dance and acting from a little girl. And then I went to New York and went into an acting group. And there were a wonderful actress and actor in New York, Broadway actors, who took an interest in me and sent me on these interviews.
Oh, so that was fabulous. So you
Yes.
actually moved back there the
And
right
it happened.
time.
And I didn't know it would happen that fast.
But to go on the road as a teenager?
Well, my mother went with me.
Oh, I was going to say.
Yeah, I was 17 by the time we went on the road. And she went with me to California because my family moved back to California.
Oh.
So she went with me till there. And by then, you know, I was the darling of the company and they all took care of me on my way back
So
to
you were
New York.
okay.
Yes, yes.
How long were you on stage before you started doing film work?
Well, I was signed actually shortly after that. I think I did one other play in New York, and then I was signed at RKO right away.
So then you came back to LA?
Yes, yes. I came out here for Christmas to see my parents, and they tested me actually at Paramount, but RKO signed me for an important picture, and then the director thought I was too young for it, so I did a lot of other pictures for them.
But you did a lot of movies with
Yes.
top leading men.
Yes, I have. I have. Not always the movie I wanted to do, but
were you just taking roles because they were there?
well, when you're under contract, you
that's
take what they give you.
Oh, they did. That's right. I forgot that.
Yes, but Pandro Berman, the top producer, had signed me, but I never did a picture for him.
Oh, he was a great producer.
Yes, he had originally
figure,
signed
wasn't
me,
he,
and
in
the
the-
same thing happened at Universal. Henry Koster signed me, and I was signed for a major film, but Diana Barrymore was signed, and they wanted to use her name, so.
What happened then? Did TV come along right after that? Or?
Well, you know, the studios were breaking up then because of TV.
Oh, and
Yes, and there was a lot of live television. And I, being a stage actress, live TV was not as difficult for me. So I worked constantly, and I was supporting 2 children at the time.
That's interesting because it was all on what, Kinescope or whatever
Yes,
they did, and they
yes.
didn't, and you had
Yes, a lot of it was live. I did a lot of live, and some of it was on film. You know, I did loads of TV shows.
That's why the Broadway and the stage acting came in was to your advantage.
Very much so. Very much so, yes.
And then you were torn. You were raising your children, but you were torn between career and marriage much of your life.
My first husband was an actor. We met in a show together, and he was very much in demand on Broadway. But then, you know, the summer I came to Denver, and then I had no apartment, so I moved to have my first baby with my family in California. So we were always commuting back and forth between Hollywood and New York.
When I was reading your book, which we would talk about, A Dance and a Hug, you talk about getting on the train all the time.
Well, you did go by train a lot then.
Were you traveling by train?
Oh, yes. I traveled with my dog to New York on the train, and I traveled to, the first time I went back after my baby was born, you know, I didn't see that baby for 10 months.
I read that. You had to go back and work, right?
Well, I went back, my husband was there, and I had hoped to bring the baby back, but it took 10 months, and I came home.
and those are, when you talk about a memoir, A Dance and a Hug, it's a memoir by Marjorie Lord.
Yes.
You do bring all the pathos of your life, the situations that come into it. As I'm reading, I'm thinking, how did she go through that, or how did you survive?
That's the reason for the book, is how do you survive? I later became responsible for my children. I had to work, but I wanted to. I loved my work.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had a wonderful mother and father who were always there for my kids, so I never neglected them. They weren't, but I was separated quite a bit from them.
That makes a big difference, though, when there's a family
Yes.
life for them. Then you started looking at directing.
Well, that happened
did
because
directing happen?
after doing the Danny Thomas show, Make Room for Daddy, I was doing a lot of dinner theaters. They were very popular then. And,
Let me just stop you just for 1 minute, because
Yes.
when you did Make Room for Daddy, you all decided that you weren't going to go on and do that anymore, and you weren't going to take any more roles, right? As that wife, the mother type of role?
Well,
You wanted something
I did
different?
not really make that decision. It was made for me. I think I was so identified with Danny that it was very difficult. I know I was up for a picture with Jimmy Stewart, and Henry Koster was doing it, wanted me very badly, but Stewart thought I was too identified with Danny.
So
So
then,
I went back to theater, as I always did.
and that's when the dinner theater came into
They were
play?
very popular then. And
What
then
do they do? Just tell us a little bit. Do they still do dinner theater?
there are a few. I think there's one down in Tuscan near
Oh, in Tustin, yeah.
Yes.
But what, it's just people sitting in a...
Well, they come in and
room?
have dinner,
Uh-huh.
and then towards the end, the show goes on.
Is there a stage and
oh,
the whole
yes.
situation?
Oh, yes, it's a regular theater.
Kind of like Las Vegas when they
A
first
little
did
bit,
that.
a little bit.
They used to have dinner theater
Yes,
in Las Vegas.
yes, the theaters were smaller, of course. But I was doing so many shows, and I wasn't happy with some of the direction. And one time I asked one of the producers of the Windmill Theaters, I know this play backwards and forwards. I was doing the same play. Would you let me direct it in your other theater? Because actually my second husband, who was a producer, talked someone into my directing a play when I was in Little Rock, Arkansas. He said, he didn't know what to do. He said, well, do Anniversary Waltz and let Marjorie direct it, because she knows every value in it.
And you were so confident in yourself because you knew it.
I knew it so well. I was seeing it get spoiled by other directors. And so the Windmill Theaters let me direct all, and I played a lot with them. And then I directed a play with Mark Miller.
With Mark Miller, who's an
Yes.
actor and who was also had a TV series.
Yes.
Was he then doing dinner theater too?
He was my leading man in several dinner theaters. And we decided to put a film he had done into a play. I directed, I did not act in that. And we had great success with it. He played in it. Yes, that's how I started directing. And I loved directing.
The thing in the book, it talks about all of that, but the other thing, I know you're so tied to charity work, and it talks about you're going into jail and working with those kids.
Yeah.
Weren't you afraid to do this?
Well, you're very carefully schooled how to protect yourself. Actually, a woman who was doing it got me to go in, and I did it with her to begin with.
Was
and
it a writing class?
No, it was a Bible class.
Oh, it was a Bible. Oh.
And the children, came in. That was voluntary, and it was a very, very. This was a high security prison for boys 16 to 18.
Oh.
And it was very interesting. But we were warned: don't ever let them touch you. Don't ever let them know where you live. Don't try to follow up on someone you're interested in, you think has a potential.
But that was so great of you to go in
I
and
loved it.
to help, whoever. If it's one person you're making a difference in their life.
Yes, I had some very interesting experiences, some of which are in the book.
And
yes.
also in the book, because I took it to bed with me and never stopped reading.
It's an easy read.
Were all these letters, did you recreate those letters, or did you
I
save
had
them? You had them?
I had them because my last husband, we might as well say it, I had 3 husbands. I was only divorced once. I lost
that's right.
my second husband, whom I dearly loved. And I remarried, and my third husband was a brilliant man. But he was very hard to sometimes talk to when there was a problem. So I decided, I know he'll read it if I write him. So I started giving him a letter about how I felt. He always read it, and he always had to comment, and it helped settle a lot of problems.
That is so great. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, she must have gone back and recreated these letters, because there was one to the children and
yes,
different.
There was one about my son.
Yes.
And one when he lost his daughter to the children.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I thought that was such a good way to communicate, because then it opened the doors. But you wrote so beautifully that you can tell that this is a writer sitting here.
Well, you know, I was writing when I was very young and took a course in it, but I was too busy being an actress and earning a living. But when I married my last husband, he was not keen on theater or movies. And you can't just stop your creation juices going. So I started to write. I've done a lot of writing. I have a lot of other material.
But you also had a chance then to work at the Blue Ribbon and to work at different charitable places in town, the Banning House.
Yes, I did. All of those places. I helped establish, which I'm most proud of, the Scripter Award at the University of Southern California, where every year for 18 years, we've honored the best realization of a book on film. It started as a fundraiser for the new library, but it's very highly respected and a wonderful event.
Do you read those things and try to help judge and get into it?
Well, yes, we look at all the movies from a book. I'm on the committee.
Yes.
We have about 40 people vote, a lot of people in the industry. And I try to check out all the books. Some I've read, some I haven't. But I try to, if I can't read the whole book, and I don't bother with books that I know don't have a chance. You know.
But there must be a lot of material for you to tackle.
So many this year. This happens in February, and everything comes out in December. And
I love this, because we always talk about Marjorie Lord, the actress, Maggie Lord.
Yeah.
But Maggie Lord is actually Ann Archer's mother, the actress.
Yeah. Well, you know, for years she was my daughter, but now it's reversed.
That's what I mean. Isn't that what happens?
That's what happens, yes, and I'm proud of that.
I'm so glad. And we were so happy you were with us today, Marjorie. Thank you.
Well, I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
And thank you for watching this part of our show. We'll be back with Robert Zuckerman, who took these wonderful photos on the set today. Back with photographer, author Robert Zuckerman. Robert was born in Florida and raised in New York City. He went to UC Berkeley and took the cinematography course at the American Film Institute. Did you want to make movies?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were you making movies?
Well, I made a few student film projects then, but I was really you know, I had a great love of cinema, you know, being in the 70s and looking at all those great European films. I was very passionate. I thought it was a great way to express.
And what happened to that career?
Oh, I don't know. Just it's probably still on the sidelines there.
So you did make some movies, didn't you?
Life gets in the way of things, or takes you on its course. But interestingly enough, the beautiful Marjorie Lord, who was just here, one of my student film projects at American Film Institute, which I was a cinematographer on, I did with her daughter, with
Ann
Archer. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Was she in school then too?
I don't know. She was a working actress, but the director, brought them in, her and Terry Jastro, and they were in this project together. It was called Harry's House. It was based on a Joni Mitchell song.
Well, good for. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
a big tie-in. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then, how did photography come about?
Well, I always loved photography, and it's something I had done. I really got into it when I was at Berkeley, and did it as a hobby. And then I went to the American Film Institute and got into the film business, and kind of did all sorts of weird jobs, but never really directed films for about 10 years.
Oh, was that long?
And I had been a partner in a production company, and the partnership wasn't working out. And I decided, this was around 1989, 1990, that I wanted to do something on my own that I really loved. And so I said, well, I'm going to try photography. And so.
But you had been trained in photography.
Yeah, and I've been doing it all along, as I said.
Well, how did this celebrity? Because you have photographed hundreds of celebrities.
Yeah, I got pretty lucky. I guess I.
Lucky? Do you think luck plays a part?
Well, I think it's definitely luck, and also tenacity, and just a real
connections.
desire.
Did you have connections?
I got very lucky, as I said. I mean, one of my very first jobs, when I hadn't no celebrity really in my book, I had been friends with Oliver Stone's assistant at the time, and he was making the movie The Doors. And I somehow wrangled a meeting with Oliver, and he looked at my portfolio for about 30 seconds, and he hired me to do the special photographs for The Doors, which are the big portraits that they do.
Well, then you went on to do all this photography. I mean, 30, 40, 50 films where you were key photographer, unit photographer.
Yeah.
Tell me what that means. What's a unit photographer? What's a key photographer?
Key art photographer. Well, a unit photographer
what does that do?
is the person who's there on the set every day.
That's a unit.
That's the unit photographer, and he's a member of the crew.
But you did a lot of those.
I did a lot of those, and it's a very underrated job. It's a very tough, challenging job, both from a technical point of view and also in terms of your vibe and working with actors. So I got a lot of training doing that. It was,
I would think you had to be on in the background, kind of hide yourself. You can't be friendly with what's going on, can you?
You have to. Well, someone once. I was at a union meeting a long time ago, and one of my fellow unit photographers said the best way to be invisible is to be there all the time.
So that you're used to you?
And so you can't be too far in the background, otherwise there's so much paraphernalia and apparatus and cameras that you miss the shot. So the ideal place is you want to establish yourself in the beginning up front near the movie camera.
And so you do that every day? And what happens to that product?
Well, a lot of it, fills up file cabinets and binders, but they cull all the photographs down into a key art set of. They make a selection of maybe 100 or so pictures that go into the press kits.
Oh, they do the press kits, right?
And goes now on the websites, and everything's become digital.
So that's what happens.
But in some films, you can shoot many thousands of photographs. Like you can shoot 15 or 20,000 frames, and it narrows down to about 50 pictures in the end.
Would this be a way that they would use?
Yeah, in this case,
like a unit photo.
Well, this actually wasn't a unit photo, although it sort of has it has more of that look of a unit photo. This was a special photo shoot or key art shoot on this movie Redemption that Jamie Foxx did for FX.
Oh, so that's the key photography then that we're talking about. So they used it on this. There was something else in here that you had shown, that you had brought, that let me see that your work gets used in other ways than just portraiture. This one with Will Smith. Do they use him for headshot?
Well, he actually ended up using that as his autograph giveaway shot.
Oh, so that's the same?
But this was just a candid moment on the set of Bad Boys 2, and he just happened to be standing in a beautiful light and posing that way in between takes, and I caught a few shots, and they really liked it, so he's now using that as his personal autograph shot that he gives away.
That's great. So I'm going to just hold up a couple of celebrity pictures before we get to your book, which we're going to talk about.
Marcello Mastroianni in 1993 at the Four Seasons Hotel, just another legend. And
all natural light.
All natural light, just sitting by a window, but that ran in Paris Match and some of the other big magazines in Europe. Brandon Lee on the set of the movie The Crow, which is Also a very tough and tragic film, but that was one of the last portrait sittings with him.
Oh, this is a fabulous picture of
Mr. David Bowie. That was on at Coney Island, New York, on a December morning. Very rugged, gray light.
I think this is what I was talking about.
Right.
Another like advertising kind
Yeah,
of
that was
thing?
an advertising shoot that was made to look very gritty about a TV show called Over There for the FX network and about the soldiers in Iraq.
Oh, I
And so those were all actually pictures that, it looks like one photo, but those were a bunch of photos that were composited together.
And here's the other one.
Right.
See, I knew there was like some commercial aspect of your being on the set,
Yeah.
right?
This was a photo shoot, interesting. This was actually not a special shoot, but it was a moment on the set when we were in Philadelphia, and I happened to ask Nicolas Cage to stand in front of a big clock face, and I said, Nick, give me a poster shot. And he went into that pose, and out of all the photos in the movie, they ended up taking that and making that poster out of it.
Oh, that's great. And then you did my portrait, which was just such an easy situation.
Yeah.
It was like, hello, Robert. Hello,
We were hanging out.
Joan."
We were having a good time. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you came up with this kind of work.
Yeah.
You found different locations in the courtyard where your art gallery is on La Cienega.
Yeah.
But aside from that, you became the official portraitist for the Shabazz family, Malcolm X. How did that happen?
Well,
Is this,
that was
what
one
we're
of the
gonna look
shots.
at?
Yeah, Malak Shabazz, who's on the left there, the youngest daughter of Malcolm X, is friends with my aunt in New York. They both work at the United Nations. And she had seen some of my work, and she'd also seen a photo that I had done of Ossie Davis, the great actor who passed away earlier this year. And I was on a set with him the day before he passed away, and I did a beautiful photo of him and his grandson.
But this is beautiful. You're using lighting in this.
Well, this is just lighting inside the Audubon Ballroom, which is they reopened the Audubon Ballroom as a museum dedicated to Malcolm X, and there's a big commemoration there.
That was natural light.
And this is the
This was the one that I think you were
Oh, yeah.
talking about.
Morgan Freeman. That was in his office in Santa Monica, and also there happened to be a skylight placed just right, so we sat him down there, and the lighting came out really nice. And that was.
Do you use lights? Do you use
yeah.
rigged lights?
I do use rigged lights. I just, for instance, this was a rigged light.
Oh,
is
this one right here.
Michael Chiklis, in some shots I did for The Shield for his TV series on FX.
So did you put this light in the back right here?
No, that was at a schoolyard. I used that light, but I had a light that I used to light his face. So it was kind of a combination of the two that made it interesting with that chain link fence.
That's great.
And yeah,
And the last, same one, right?
Well, that's
a little
him
bit
still.
closer, yeah.
that's him. And yeah,
And then I'm gonna just show this one too, because you must have been at this historic.
yeah. This was in Pinellas Park, Florida, earlier this year, outside the hospice where Terry Schiavo was, and that's her brother, sister, and father.
Did they pose for you? Or?
Yeah, they posed for me. I was there for a few days, and I went there because I also have a quadriplegic sister who was not as brain diminished as Terry, but she's on a feeding tube, and so I wanted to go see what was going on.
And I think that takes us into this book, because
Yeah.
this book is dedicated to your sister.
To Patty, yeah. And yeah, she's an inspiration to me because.
How did this book come about, Kind Sight? And what kind of a name is that?
Well, the book came about because I had been making these stories of my encounters with people and emailing them around to friends, little stories with pictures about the richness of everyday life. And I got such good feedback on it. Many people encouraged me to make a book over a period of about 2 or 3 years that eventually it came about, the book.
Just regular people, because the people that we've already seen
Yeah.
were celebrity. These people, like the plumber,
Milan, my plumber, yeah.
I love.
And he's a great character. Well, I've just found that if you stop and have a conversation with people, everybody's really a star. Everyone has a story. And so...
But what I like is, how did you transcribe the stories? You just sat and talked with them, and then you just talked about your experience?
Yeah, well, in this case, it was just an episode where I had called him over to, because I had my grinder in my sink wasn't working. And so he's a very exuberant character. I mean, he could be a movie actor himself.
What about the title? What does it mean?
Well, the title, Hindsight, it's obviously a play on the word hindsight. It has a familiar ring to it, but it's also about a way of seeing the world. It's about seeing the positive, the old cliche about the glass being half full, and it's about seeing the good in people.
Seeing a kindness, kindness.
Right, and there's a quote in there that I say that if you look for the good in people, you will find it there, and if you speak to the good in people, you'll strengthen it.
I love that, and I love this woman as a taxi driver.
Right.
But she looks like a nun to me.
Yeah, she has a very angelic quality. I mean, that's the first thing I noticed when I got in her cab. I was used to seeing younger men with, really strong hands, and I see these like gentle old white hands, almost translucent on the steering wheel. And we had a great...
And you talked, and she told you about what was going on. And
yeah.
One thing I think that's interesting because of the way you talk about looking at things in a different light, you've gone into the elementary schools.
Yeah.
And kind of shown the children.
Well, I'm about to do that. I'm actually going to go to some schools in New Jersey next month, into some middle schools and so forth. Yeah, my mom's cat, And
then what will you what message will you take them?
Just about being interested in other people and seeing that the world around them can be a very rich place. I mean, we're so inundated with terror and fear and the whole specter of it, that sometimes we lose sight of the fact that the world around us is very rich and laden with possibility and hope.
I have a couple. I love this. This is so sad. This is in a Ronald McDonald House.
Right. My family and I went the Christmas before last. We decided to do something special. We brought some gifts down to the Ronald McDonald House in Miami, and Hyacinth and Dashiell, we became friendly with them and stayed in touch, and still to this day stay in touch. And yeah.
So it's always doing good. It's not. It's so interesting to see a picture of Mastroianni or The Doors, someone from The Doors, or David Bowie, and then to see these real people that you've documented in Hindsight.
It is. It's people have asked me, well, what's the difference between photographing a celebrity like that, and I find that, like, especially with Mastroianni or some of these people, just to get on one-on-one situations, they're real people too, and I try and approach it in that same way.
Oh, thank you, Robert.
Oh, thank you, Joan.
Thank you for being here. I love these, and I love the message that you've brought, and thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for having me here.
And keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles, 90017. See you next time.